I was 12 when I learned that fire takes everything, not just what it burns, but what survives in the ashes, changed and unrecognizable. It was November in Cleveland, the kind of cold that gets inside your bones and stays there. My parents, David and Patricia, had lived in that house on West 65th for 20 years, a narrow Victorian with a porch that sagged in the middle, and a kitchen that smelled perpetually of my mother's gingerbread and my father's aftershave. They were not wealthy people. My father worked maintenance at the Ford plant. My mother cleaned houses in Shaker Heights. But they owned that house, free and clear, the deed a testament to 20 years of overtime and coupons and never taking a vacation. Marcus was 16, already the man of the house in the way that made our parents proud and me invisible. He was handsome, charming, the kind of teenager who could talk his way out of detention and into the pants of any girl at Lincoln West High. He was also, I would later understand, already practicing the addictions that would define his adult life: small bets on football games, poker with older boys, the thrill of risk that made him feel powerful in a world where power was scarce. I was the good daughter, the quiet one, the one who made straight A's and helped my mother bake and never caused trouble. I was not interesting. I was not noticed. I was simply there, reliable, predictable, the child who would grow up to be a nurse because nurses were needed, and I had learned early that being needed was the closest thing to being loved. The fire started in the basement. Faulty wiring, the investigators said, old house, old pipes, the kind of tragedy that happens in neighborhoods where people can't afford to update their infrastructure. My father tried to get my mother out. My mother tried to get back in for the photo albums. They both died of smoke inhalation in the upstairs hallway, 15 feet from the window that would have saved them. Marcus and I were at school. We came home to yellow tape and neighbors crying and a social worker who spoke to us like we were made of glass that might shatter at the wrong word. Marcus stood tall, shook the social worker's hand, promised to take care of his sister. I stood beside him, 12 years old, and believed him, because I needed to believe in something, and Marcus was all I had. The house survived. The fire was contained to the basement and part of the first floor, bad enough to kill, not bad enough to destroy. The insurance paid for repairs. The mortgage paid off meant we had a place to live. And our parents' will, drawn up in a lawyer's office 5 years earlier, named Marcus as executor and guardian. He's the man of the family, my father had said. According to the lawyer who read us the document, he'll know what to do. What Marcus did was move us into the repaired house and begin, slowly, to dismantle it. I don't remember when I first noticed the gambling. It was always there, humming beneath the surface like electricity in old wires. Marcus played poker with friends. He bet on sports. He bought scratch-off tickets at the corner store and spent hours scratching them at the kitchen table, the silver dust accumulating like evidence of a crime he didn't think was criminal. He was 20 when he took out the first loan against the house. For repairs, he told me, though the repairs were cosmetic: new carpet, fresh paint, a television that took up half the living room wall. I was 16, working weekends at a diner to save for college, and I didn't question him. He was the executor. He was the man of the family. He knew what he was doing. He was 25 when I graduated nursing school and moved into my own apartment, a studio near the hospital, barely big enough for a bed and a desk, but mine. I sent money home every month. For maintenance, I said, though I suspected the maintenance was Marcus's debts. I sent it anyway, because it was my parents' house, because it was the only place they still existed, because I was still the good daughter, the reliable one, the child who had learned that being needed was the same as being loved. I was 32 when the call came. Welcome to Little Bunny Stories. If you're new here, my name is Naomi, and this is the story of how I stopped sending money and started buying back my own history. If you've ever had a sibling sell what you loved and call it their right, if you've ever been told that patience is weakness while recklessness is freedom, subscribe. This one's for you. Here's my story. The call was from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice, professional, detached. Miss Patterson, this is Richard Hendricks. I'm calling about the property at 1847 West 65th Street. I understand you're the sister of the previous owner. Previous owner, I repeated, the words not making sense. My brother owns that house, our parents' house. Your brother sold it to me 6 weeks ago. For $180,000. I'm calling because the tenant listed you as an emergency contact, and there's been a water main break. I hung up. I called Marcus. The phone rang 4 times, then went to voicemail, a generic message, not even his name. I called again. On the 5th try he answered. Naomi, hey, I was just going to call you, you sold the house. A pause. The sound of a television in the background, a sports announcer, a crowd cheering. Marcus was somewhere with a game on, somewhere comfortable, while I stood in the hospital break room holding a phone that suddenly felt too heavy. Listen, it was a good deal. The market's hot right now and I needed to. You sold our parents' house. Without telling me, without asking me. You sold the only thing they left us. It was my decision, he said, and his voice changed, not defensive, not apologetic, but something harder, entitled. I'm the executor. Dad left me in charge. You don't live there, you haven't lived there in years, you don't get a say. I sent you money every month for 10 years, I said, and my voice was steady, which surprised me. I was not steady. I was shaking, my free hand gripping the edge of the break room table hard enough to hurt. Money for maintenance, for taxes, for keeping it in the family, and you sold it. Money I needed, Marcus said. Do you know what it's like, Naomi? Do you know what it's like to be the one responsible? To have everyone looking at you like you're supposed to know what to do? Dad left me this mess, the house, the bills, the pressure. He didn't leave you anything because he knew you couldn't handle it. He left me memories, I said. He left me the kitchen where Mom taught me to bake, the porch where he used to sit and watch the street. He left me a home, Marcus. And you sold it for what? A new car, a trip to Vegas. Another pause, longer this time. The television noise stopped, he had muted it or turned it off or walked away. Debts, he said finally, and for the first time I heard something beneath the entitlement. Fear, shame, the boy who had stood in front of our burning house and promised to take care of me. I had debts, Naomi, gambling debts, the kind that don't go away if you ignore them, the kind where people show up at your door and explain what will happen to your fingers if you don't pay. How much? Does it matter? How much, Marcus? 140, maybe 150, it got away from me. The sale covered most of it. I'm almost clear now. $150,000 in gambling debts. Our parents' house sold for 180, and most of it gone to men who threatened to break his fingers. I leaned against the break room table, suddenly exhausted, suddenly old. Where are you living now? With a friend, temporary. And the house, who's living in our parents' house? Hendricks rented it, some family, I don't know the details. You don't know the details, I repeated. You don't know who's living in Mom and Dad's bedroom. You don't know if they're taking care of the garden. You don't know if the porch is still sagging or if they fixed it or if they even care. You sold our history and you don't know the details. Naomi, I hung up. I sat in the break room for 10 minutes staring at the motivational poster on the wall, *teamwork makes the dream work*, and I made a decision. Not to cry, not to scream, not to demand that Marcus fix what he had broken because Marcus could not fix himself, let alone anything else. I would fix it. I would buy back what he had sold, and I would make him understand, in the only language he seemed to comprehend, what it meant to lose something you thought was yours. I started with research. Not revenge, not yet. Just information, the gathering of facts that nurses learn to do before making a diagnosis. Richard Hendricks was a real estate investor who specialized in transitional properties, houses bought cheap, minimally repaired, rented at inflated prices to families waiting for Section 8 vouchers or public housing. He owned 47 properties in Cuyahoga County. He had been sued twice for unsafe conditions, settled both times out of court. He was not a villain, exactly, just a man who saw houses as commodities rather than homes, who had never lost anyone to smoke inhalation in an upstairs hallway. The family living in my parents' house was the Hendersons, mother, father, 3 children under 10. They paid $1,200 a month for a house that Marcus had sold for $180,000, a house that would have been theirs in 15 years of mortgage payments if my parents had still owed anything. They were not to blame. They were trying to survive in a system that made survival expensive. I visited the house on a Saturday, dressed in jeans and a sweatshirt, carrying a clipboard with fake rental applications. I told Mrs. Henderson I was looking for a place for my elderly mother, that I was checking the neighborhood. She invited me in for coffee. The house was worse than I imagined. The gingerbread smell was gone, replaced by mildew and cheap air freshener. My mother's kitchen, the yellow cabinets she had painted herself, the tile backsplash she had saved for 6 months to install, was now avocado green, the work of a quick flipper who didn't care about her choices. The garden was a trash heap, fast food containers, broken toys, the remnants of a swing set that had collapsed, but the bones were there. The fireplace where my father had hung our stockings, the window seat where I had read on rainy days. The stairs, creaking in the same places, leading to the hallway where my parents had died and where I had not been able to enter since the funeral. I thanked Mrs. Henderson. I left, and I began to save. Saving was not new to me. I had been saving since I was 16, putting aside diner tips for college, then nursing school, then the apartment, then the monthly checks to Marcus. What was new was the intensity, the focus, the absolute refusal to spend money on anything that did not serve the goal. I worked double shifts. I picked up overtime in the ER, the ICU, the COVID ward when another wave hit. I lived on rice and beans and the free meals from the hospital cafeteria. I canceled my streaming subscriptions, my gym membership, my occasional dinners with colleagues. I became a ghost in my own life, present only at work and in the small studio where I slept and planned and counted the days. My supervisor, Dr. Chen, noticed. "You're going to burn out," she said, finding me asleep in the break room after a 16-hour shift. "What's driving this?" "A house," I said. "My parents' house. My brother sold it. I'm buying it back." She didn't ask why. She just nodded and adjusted my schedule to give me one full day off every 2 weeks, not much, but enough to prevent collapse. "When you get it," she said, "come tell me, I'll bring wine." I saved for 2 years. 2 years of exhaustion, of missing sleep, of watching my bank account grow while my life shrank to the dimensions of work and waiting. I learned to find pleasure in small things, a perfect Roman IV insertion, a patient's thank you, the monthly transfer to my savings account that brought me closer to the number I needed. I also learned about Marcus. Not from him, he stopped answering my calls after the first month, after I refused to lend him just a few hundred to get back on his feet. From his ex-wife, who found me on Facebook. From his former landlord, who called looking for back rent. From the public records of lawsuits filed by creditors, by casinos, by men with names that sounded like characters in crime novels. Marcus was not almost clear. Marcus was drowning. The $180,000 had disappeared in 3 weeks, debts old and new, interest compounded by men who did not believe in bankruptcy court. He had sold his car, his furniture, his phone. He was living in a friend's basement, the same friend from high school who had once admired him, now keeping him like a stray cat that wouldn't leave. I found him there one Sunday, my one day off, standing outside the house in Tremont where his friend lived. He was smoking a cigarette, staring at nothing, wearing clothes that had been nice once but were now stained and too loose. "Naomi," he said, not surprised. "Come to gloat. Come to see you," I said, "to understand what you became." "What I became?" He laughed, a harsh sound that ended in coughing. "I became what Dad made me. The man of the family, the one responsible for everything. The one who had to be strong, had to provide, had to figure it out while you got to run away and be the good girl." "I worked double shifts for 10 years to send you money," I said. "I didn't run away, I carried you, and you sold what I was carrying." He dropped the cigarette, ground it out with a worn shoe. "What do you want, Naomi? An apology? I don't have one. I did what I had to do. The house was just. It was just a house, wood and plaster. It wasn't Mom and Dad, they were already gone. It was where they existed," I said. "Where I could still find them. You took that because you couldn't stop playing cards with men who break fingers. And now you're standing in a friend's driveway, smoking borrowed cigarettes, telling me that wood and plaster don't matter." I turned to leave. Then I stopped, looked back at him, at the brother who had once promised to take care of me, who had become someone I barely recognized. "I'm buying it back," I said. "Not for you, for me. And when I do, you're going to understand what it means to lose something you thought was yours." I walked away. He didn't follow. In March of 2026, I had $210,000 in savings. I called Richard Hendricks. "Mr. Hendricks, this is Naomi Patterson. You bought my family home on West 65th 2 years ago. I'm interested in purchasing it." "Miss Patterson." He remembered me or pretended to. "I heard about your brother, tough situation. The house is currently rented, you know, good tenants. I'd hate to disrupt them. I'll offer $195,000. Cash, you bought it for $180, that's a reasonable return." A pause. I could hear him calculating the rental income he was losing, the maintenance costs, the hassle of being a landlord in a neighborhood that was gentrifying unevenly. $195, he repeated. "That's generous, may I ask why?" "Because it's mine," I said. "It was always mine. My brother just held it temporarily. We closed in 30 days. I used a lawyer, not the one who had handled my parents' estate, who had never questioned Marcus's decisions, but a young woman named Sarah who specialized in property law and asked no questions about my motives. The Hendersons were not evicted. I offered them 6 months to find new housing, waived their rent for that period, helped Mrs. Henderson apply for Section 8 in a better district. They were confused by my generosity, suspicious of my motives. I didn't explain. I just gave them what Marcus had never given anyone: time, dignity, the chance to land on their feet. And then I owned the house. The deed was in my name, the keys were in my hand, and I did nothing. For a month, I left the house empty. I walked through the rooms, the avocado kitchen, the stained living room, the upstairs hallway where I had not been able to enter since I was 12. I touched the walls where my parents' photos had hung. I sat on the porch where my father had watched the street. I let the silence settle, let the ghosts speak, let myself feel what I had been too busy saving to acknowledge. Grief. Not for my parents. I had grieved them in my way over 20 years. Grief for the girl who had believed her brother would take care of her. Grief for the years of sending money to a man who saw her as a resource rather than a sister. Grief for the house that had survived fire but almost didn't survive family. Then I began to plan the next phase. I found Marcus at the same bar where I had found him 2 years earlier, a dive near the flats, smoke-stained and hopeless, where men who had lost everything gathered to lose a little more. He was thinner, grayer, the handsome boy erased by disappointment and cheap beer. "You're buying me a drink," he said, not looking up from his glass. "It's the least you can do, rich girl." I sat across from him. I placed an envelope on the table, then another, then a pen. "What's this?" "Eid," I said. "To our parents' house. I bought it back, it's mine now." He opened the envelope, read the first page, closed it. His hands shook from alcohol, from age, from something else. "Congratulations," he said. "You win, you have the house, the money, the moral high ground. What do you want, a parade? I want you to sign this." I pushed the second envelope toward him. "It's a lease, for the basement apartment. $800 a month, utilities included, first and last month upfront." He stared at me. "You want me to rent our parents' basement from you?" "I want you to live in the house you sold," I said. "I want you to walk up the stairs you said didn't matter. I want you to sleep beneath the kitchen where Mom baked gingerbread and you ate it without thanking her. I want you to understand every single day what you gave away." "You're insane." "I'm patient," I corrected. "You chose quick money. I chose slow revenge. And now I'm offering you a choice. Sign the lease, live in the basement, pay me rent every month, or leave, go to another friend's couch, go to a shelter, go to the men who break fingers and see if they'll give you a second chance. But if you want to come home," and I used the word deliberately, cruelly, "you'll pay for the privilege." He should have walked away. Any man with pride, with self-respect, with the memory of being the man of the family would have walked away. But Marcus had none of those things left. He had debts, not gambling debts anymore. Those had been settled with the sale, but the deeper debts of a life spent taking without building, consuming without creating. He signed. The basement was not cruel. I had it cleaned, repainted, furnished with a bed, a desk, a small kitchenette. It was small, no windows, the furnace humming constantly, the smell of old concrete that never quite dissipates. But it was clean, it was safe. It was more than Marcus had. I moved into the upstairs. I restored my mother's kitchen, not exactly as it was because I was not my mother but in her spirit. Yellow cabinets, tile backsplash, a window over the sink where she had stood and watched the garden. I planted the garden myself, tomatoes, basil, the flowers she had loved. I hung photos of my parents in the hallway, the ones I had rescued from a box in the attic, the ones Marcus had never thought to save. Every month Marcus paid his rent. I gave him a receipt, and on each receipt I wrote a note. The first month, asterisk, "This house belonged to Mom and Dad. You sold it, I bought it. Now you pay to live in what you destroyed." Asterisk, the second month, asterisk, "Mom's tomatoes are growing. You never liked gardening. You never liked anything that required waiting." Asterisk, the third month, asterisk, "Dad's porch still sags. I haven't fixed it. Some things should stay imperfect. They remind us of what we didn't maintain." Asterisk, the fourth month, asterisk, "I found your baseball trophies in the attic. You were good at something once, before you decided that winning at cards mattered more." Asterisk, I never saw him read the notes. He took the receipts, folded them, put them in his pocket, but I noticed changes. Small at first, then larger. He started attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings. I found the pamphlet in the recycling bin, not hidden, just discarded as if he wanted me to know without having to say it. He began repairing things, a loose step, a dripping faucet, the back gate that had stuck for years. He worked in the garden, at first awkwardly, then with something approaching care. He planted tomatoes near mine, not speaking to me but present. At 6 months, I found him in the garden at dawn, kneeling in the dirt, his hands black with soil. He was crying silently, shoulders shaking, the way men cry when they have been taught that noise is weakness. I remember Mom here, he said, not looking up. She used to sing some Cuban song, I don't know the words, but I remember the tune. Guantanamera, I said. She sang it when she was happy, when the tomatoes were ripe. I haven't heard it in 20 years. He wiped his face with his sleeve, leaving a streak of dirt. I haven't been happy in 20 years. I thought winning would make me happy. The next hand, the next bet, the next big score, but it was just postponing, putting off the moment when I had to face what I was. What are you? I asked. He looked at me then. Really looked, the way he hadn't since we were children, since the fire, since the promise he made and broke. I'm your brother, he said. The one who failed you, the one who sold your memories and called it necessity. I don't know if I can be anything else, but I'm trying to be something, someone who pays rent on time, someone who plants tomatoes, someone who doesn't run away when the game gets hard. I didn't hug him. I wasn't ready for that, but I didn't leave either. I knelt beside him in the dirt, and we planted the rest of the row in silence, brother and sister, landlord and tenant, enemies and survivors, sharing the same soil without knowing what would grow. The notes changed, not immediately but gradually like seasons turning. At 9 months, the porch needs fixing. Dad would have wanted it safe if you have time. At 10 months, I'm making gingerbread Saturday. Mom's recipe, you're welcome to smell it or help or not. At 11 months, I found a photo of us at the lake, before the fire. You were teaching me to swim, I had forgotten you were ever kind. At 1 year I gave him a blank receipt, no amount due, no note, just the date and 4 words, do you want to help me fix the porch? He did. We worked on it together, not well, not professionally, but together. Measuring, cutting, arguing about whether to replace the whole thing or just the sagging section. It took 3 weekends. When we finished, we sat on it with coffee, and the boards held our weight, and the sunset painted the street in colors I remembered from childhood. I can't pay you back, Marcus said. The money, the house, the years. I know, I said. I can't be the brother you deserved. I know that too. Then why? He gestured at the porch, the house, the garden where his tomatoes grew near mine. Why any of this? Because Mom believed in second chances, I said. Because Dad believed in hard work. Because I spent 2 years saving for this house, and another year watching you try to become someone who deserves to live in it. Not because you've earned it, because you're trying, and trying is more than you were doing before. He nodded, not speaking, his eyes on the street where our father used to watch the world go by. I'm still paying rent, he said finally. I want to, I need to, it's the only thing that keeps me accountable to you, to them. He looked up at the house, at the windows where our parents had lived and died. To whoever I might become. Then pay, I said, and keep trying. And maybe eventually we'll figure out what family means when there's no fire to survive, no house to save, no enemy to fight. Maybe we'll just be brother and sister. Messy, imperfect, still learning, but present. He smiled, small, tentative, the first real smile I had seen from him in decades. Present, he repeated. I can do present. I'm not good at much else. You're good at tomatoes, I said, and porches and showing up. Showing up, he agreed. That's new, but I'm learning. I am Naomi Patterson. I am 34 years old. I am a nurse, a homeowner, a sister who learned that revenge is not destruction but patience, not cruelty but the slow work of making someone see what they threw away. I live in my parents' house, in the room where they once slept, with my brother in the basement and my mother's garden outside, and the porch we fixed together holding us up when we sit to watch the evening. We are not healed. We are not forgiven. We are simply here, in the same place, working the same soil, sharing the same silence that does not need explanation. And for now, that is enough. See you in the next story.